Hi, I'm Lori.
And I'm Kevin, and this is No Longer Ashamed.
We are survivors of childhood sexual abuse.
And we're here to share with you that if you're a survivor, you don't have to be alone.
Our logo is a salamander, and the reason is a fire salamander can survive a fire, and you have survived a fire.
We want to help you with your journey to healing and hope.
We are all survivors together, and we walk this journey together, and you are not alone.
By telling our stories, we are hoping that you will have the courage to share your stories as well and find your voice.
Because stories are so important, and for so long I know that I wouldn't tell my story, but when I finally shared my story, that's when I got my freedom.
And this is our journey and your journey to healing and hope. So come with us.
All right, self-sabotage.
Been thinking about this lately because I realized I used to be really good at it. I used to do it a lot. And I think for a lot of survivors, it's very easy because you're taught that you don't matter, that you're just an object, that there's something wrong with you, that you're bad, all those things. So we do that self-reinforcing by sabotaging ourselves. And I was really good at. Oh my gosh. And it was because I knew there was something bad about me. So I did bad things in order to prove it in a way. Yeah. And I did drugs, I did alcohol, all the things that I knew were wrong. And I didn't care because I didn't think I mattered. And if you're doing things that are harmful, or if you have suicidal thoughts, you really deserve to get help. If you have suicidal thoughts, or if you're doing things that are self-harmful, you really deserve to get help. You don't deserve to have those feelings about yourself.
And the suicide hotline now is easy. It's 988.
Yeah. And so find a hotline, call the suicide hotline, call a crisis line, get the help you deserve. And even if you're struggling with issues of drug dependency or alcohol dependency or other dependency that's harmful, pornography, sexual addiction issues, you deserve the help that you need. So find out where you can get that help. I know for me, it wasn't until I actually started valuing myself. I actually felt like that I did matter, that I could do things well, and I started to prove it to myself. And I think that is how we defeat these habits, is by not focusing on the things that we're doing that we don't like, but focusing on the things that we're doing that we actually do like, that are improving ourselves. And I think that's how I began to prove to myself that I was capable and that I did matter.
I think the thing about self-sabotage is I can see it in somebody else. If I have a family member or friend that's doing self-sabotage, I can be like, there it is. But it's harder to recognize in myself. And a good way that I've kind of heard it explained that made sense to me is it's like we have this thermostat of what we're worth, what we'll tolerate. And so if we go too low, it kind of pulls us back up. But also if we start doing really well, it pulls us back down to our comfort zone. Mm-hmm. And so part of getting out of self-sabotage is recognizing, I like how you say we deserve it, is recognizing that we deserve it. And then intentionally raising that thermometer and saying, not only do I deserve it, I deserve to have a happy life. I deserve to feel good, have joy, all those things that sometimes when we've had trauma for so long, joy is almost so unfamiliar. Yeah. And so when we start to feel it, we're like, yeah, no, that's not good. Mm-hmm. Instead of, oh, I want more of that.
It's not familiar. And we don't recognize that it's okay almost. It's like there are times when people would compliment me or I'd do things well. And I felt uncomfortable about getting compliments or getting recognition for doing things, because I felt like that wasn't right for some reason, because I was used to thinking I wasn't ever capable or I wasn't ever going to matter. And that's why I think it's better to focus on, I think the way out of this kind of catch-22 is to look at the things that you are doing that are helpful, that are working for you, and focusing on those rather than focusing on the issues that you want to change. Focus on the issues that you want to do more of. And that helps you from every time you do something that you're not happy about, just dwelling on and beating yourself up about it, because I used to do that a lot. But when you stop beating yourself up about the things that you want to change, and instead you're raising that bar, that thermostat, by saying, I'm good at these things. I want to continue being good at these things and even get better at these things and keep working on these things. So you're focusing on the things that are working in your life and looking at ways to make them get better and continue.
To want more of it, rather than I don't deserve this, is I want more of this.
Yeah. And so these are things that generally you kind of work on after you've been doing the work for a while, because it's hard to focus on bettering yourself when you haven't even addressed a lot of the issues yet. And so you kind of have to get through but it's something you can start.
Well, and I think sometimes we can look at sabotage like I don't know if there's symptoms, but one is when we reject compliments. That can be a self-sabotage. Or another one that's a big one is procrastination, because we put off something that we really deserve because we don't think we deserve it, which is sabotaging ourselves. So we may have, maybe we're supposed to go on vacation, but having a wonderful, good vacation isn't in our wheelhouse. So we have to make it miserable and hard. And then everybody's fighting. I know for me growing up, holidays, it seemed like every Christmas, my mom would start a fight with someone. And now that I look back, I think that was her self-sabotage. Can't we just enjoy the day in her mind? And she had never done any of the work. And so then when I look back, every Christmas, every holiday that could have been a great fun holiday, a wrench was thrown into it.
Yeah. And I know for me, previously, it was always the drugs, alcohol, other bad habits that just would drag me down, and I would avoid doing anything productive because I was so busy with drugs and alcohol. But now it is procrastination. And that's kind of where I came to wanting to talk about this, is because even when you find out the things that you want to change in your life, we tend to replace them with others. And so you have to keep working at this and working at, because I know I've replaced it. It's procrastination, but it's I fill up my time with media. I'm reading news all the time, or I'm on Facebook checking out what other people are doing. And all of a sudden, 2-3 hours are gone. And I'm going, geez, I really want to do something today and not just sit here looking at my phone at the news.
Right. Which is, like you said, it's a replacement. It's another way of checking out. It's not like, oh, well, I'm just having some me time. It's like, actually, you're just checking out in a different way.
Yeah. And even though there's things I've been wanting to do, I plan on doing, and then all of a sudden I've spent a couple hours on my phone looking at news, which is all really important. I have to keep up on the news, and then I gotta walk the dogs, and then I gotta do all this stuff. And I feel like I never get anything done because I'm just, checking out. So it is a continuous process, and awareness is the key. Being aware of what it is that we spend our time on and what it is we want to spend our time on, and whether or not that's balanced or not.
And actually asking yourself, when you catch yourself, asking yourself the question, is this what I really want to be doing? Or is this really how I spend my time? Because our brain will do whatever it thinks we want. So if it sees us scrolling, it's going to go, oh, they like scrolling. Oh, they like kitties. We're going to scroll till we find a kitty. But when we say it out loud and we ask ourselves, is this what I really want to be doing? It kind of breaks the spell. And it's, I think we've talked about this before, when our self-talk, so when we think we don't deserve it, and something like somebody's trying to do something nice for us and we're feeling like uncomfortable and, oh, I don't deserve that, is if we actually speak the words, and say, oh, I don't feel like I deserve that. And then you ask yourself, is that true? And usually, no, that's not true. You do deserve that. You do deserve a piece of cake. You do deserve to be in the front of the line. But because when we roll it around in our head, these untruths take hold. And so when we begin to speak the words every chance we get, or write them down if you're a journaler, but just say, is that true? Or is this what I really want to be doing? Ask yourself out loud. It really changes the trajectory.
Yeah, especially if we're paying attention to what we are actually doing every day, and then paying attention to what it is that we really want to be doing and why it is we never seem to get there. We never seem to get those things done that we want to do. And why is it that I've been wanting to write this email for days and I just keep putting it off?
Yeah. Well, and sometimes we do that because it's something hard, like if we have to have a hard conversation or whatever. So sometimes there is that element, but also I feel like there is a force, Christians might call it the enemy, but there is a force. For instance, if there's something you want to do that's good, I see this all the time with coaching clients. They'll be like, I'm going to take the step, I'm going to do the thing, and they do it. And then all hell breaks loose.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, it's a sign. It's like, no, this is what happens. Life happens. Don't let that be the thing that shuts you down and you go, no, you want to keep moving forward. And so I think sometimes even in sabotage is we almost sabotage ourselves because we are so worried about what it will be like if the thing we do is successful. Then what? What if we don't really know how to manage money? Or what if, so we sabotage ourselves to not get to that place because of something, a belief system we have. Like, so what I say is maybe, okay, let's use that. I don't know how to manage money. Some people are like, well, if I get really rich, it's like, well, I'll figure it out. When we can say to ourselves, I'm a problem solver, I'll figure it out. All of a sudden it changes things because you don't recognize you have this fear that's, again, like we've talked about, it's that little person in your life that's going, wait a minute. So for me, I wanted to be a speaker, but I was so afraid I would get up and speak and my mom would be in the audience and she would heckle. And they heckle you. So I always had that fear. And the truth is that probably wouldn't have happened. But it wasn't until I spoke those words and said what I was worried about, because I didn't even really know what it was that was sabotaging every chance I got to do that very thing I wanted to do, until I was able to put words to it, recognize it. And then what I would say is, if that happens, I'll figure it out. I'll know what to do. It will all work itself out. Because so sometimes the sabotage is actually a fear, but because we don't speak it, it gets so big. And then when we speak it, it's like, oh, it's not that big of a deal. We'll figure it out.
Yeah. It's funny when you actually, it's kind of like, when you wake up in the middle of the night and you have this panic attack about something that's going to happen the next day and you're all stressed out about it. And then the next day you get through it and it's like, it really isn't that big a deal. But for some reason, it just becomes this monument in your head of fear. And I think for me, the ways I've dealt with it, even currently am dealing with it, is I do lists of what I want and what I want to get done and why I want to get them done. And I keep track of that. And when a week's gone by and I go through the list and I see the things that I did do, I give myself credit for that. I'm like, yeah, see, these are the things I did want to get done. I think it's easy to do those lists and then go back and just look at the things you didn't get done, go, But generally, when I know now, when I write those lists, they're pretty ambitious. There's a lot of stuff, and life happens. We have 3 dogs. We got to deal with the dogs all the time. We have all this stuff we're doing with all these church and other stuff. So busyness happens. But if you just are able to check off just a couple things, then you can go, look, that worked. I am able to do these things.
And then also not beat yourself up because, like you said, life happens. So, okay, well, we didn't make it to the whatever today, but you know what? That's okay. We got these 3 things done. So it's finding the grace and the balance in it.
Yeah.
But I think you hit it on the head. It's being aware of it. And then the self-talk that you do around it to help you recognize whatever's popping around in your head may not be true. So is it true? I'm just a big dummy. I can't accomplish anything, right? The words that we'll say to ourselves when we don't do it. See, you never finish anything. It's like, oh, wait, I do finish some things. Look, I finished this. The way we beat ourselves up and the things we're telling ourselves, sometimes we don't even recognize what we're saying until we actually just say those words out loud and go, wait a minute.
Well, and that's the thing about self-sabotage is we're doing it to ourselves because we're not aware that we're doing it to ourselves. It's the
Well,
habits we formed when we were dealing with our issues.
but I even see people that recognize it and still do it. They'll be
Hmm.
like, I know that's self-sabotage, but I can't figure out how to stop myself.
Yeah, yeah. And I think it's because you're focusing on it and beating yourself up about it. And you convince yourself, I'm never going to get over this. I'm never going to get
Hmm.
past it. I'm never going to get better. But when
And
you
it's a
look,
way to prove that we're unworthy.
yeah,
See,
yeah,
I am unworthy. It's a
yeah.
way to keep ourselves stuck.
And that's what I was stuck in for so long was proving I was unworthy, proving I didn't matter, that I wasn't capable. And there was a turning point, and that was when I decided I did matter, I did have value, I was capable of doing things, and that I could actually have a career and so on. And it all came about because I started to talk differently about myself. I don't know how else to put it. I started to talk differently about myself to myself and aloud. And that's how we change our brains. And we've
Hmm.
talked about this. We can change the way our brain thinks about ourselves.
Hmm.
And when we do that, we actually change.
And it sounds like too, it's like that's how we come out of the victim role. And so we can say, oh, all these bad things are happening to us. And we can believe that, or we can say, these things happen and I'm going to take charge. I can, I don't have to be the victim of, oh, the dogs chewed up my best thing. It's like that happens. What are we going to do? Rather than being like, see, I can't do anything because everything in my environment is
Mm-hmm.
getting at me. It's easy to feel like we don't have control over our life, but we can take control. And
Yeah.
we can, even if bad things happen and car accidents or whatever, we don't have to sit back and go, see, we can go, okay, what am I going to do? How am I
Yeah.
going to solve this problem?
Yeah. Yeah. And rather than making things the disaster, trying to solve them. And there are ways to get through things.
Mm-hmm.
There's always ways to get through things. You can solve them. You can get through. You can find a way. They're not always easy. It's not always comfortable. Sometimes you suffer a lot because you don't have any money because you had a car accident and you don't have a way to get to work. All these things can be difficult, but I know basically when you value yourself, you start to persevere through these things in spite of the difficulty, in spite of the fact that you feel like the world's against you. Well, all you got to do is stick with it and feel like the world might be against me right now, but I can find a way to get through this and get to a better place.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I think we all know that one person who, like, everything they touch is gold. And we have someone like that in our family, and they will do the one thing that would guarantee any of us a disaster. So here's an example. My daughter used to teach horse riding classes. And one of the things you teach the kids is you never just leave the reins down because the horse will step on it, pull on it, and jerk on their mouth and hurt themselves.
Mm.
And so you always want to like put the reins up. And this person just walks away, leaves the rein down, and nothing ever happens. But sure enough, if my daughter ever did that, the horse would roll over backwards and die. Like, there's always that person that no matter what they do. And part of it is because they have this mindset of everything always works out for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there really is something to that. So if we're saying what I started a little mantra is, if I was on my way somewhere and I was worried about parking, I'd be like, you know what? Everything always works out for me. Everything always works out for me. And the thing is I don't remember if I always got parking, but I remember on my way there had less stress because everything always works out. And my brain starts to believe that.
Yeah.
And so when we start to say those kind of messages, it actually changes our physiology, and then better things happen. And that's when we might want to kick into self-sabotage, but we're aware enough now to kind of recognize it.
Yeah. And even if things don't work out, if we have the mindset of it's going to work out,
or I can figure it out.
Yeah, we're able to handle it better because we're not freaking out we're not going into that, oh, it's a disaster. Everything's a disaster in my life. Nothing ever works.
Yeah.
when you're going, well, it will work out. We will find a way. I'll find a way. And I've found that at work a lot of times when something goes wrong one day and I have to deal with it the next day. I'll spend hours that day stressing out about how hard it's going to be to deal with the next day. Then I'll go to work and deal with it, and it wasn't that bad. And so I've started realizing it's going to work out. So
Yeah.
you don't have to wreck your night
Yeah.
stressing about it and wondering how it's going to get better. How is it going to work? You have to have that confidence in yourself. And I never had that before. When I was deep into self-sabotage, it was always focusing on the negative, focusing on what was going wrong, focusing on how I could never get anything done. I was incapable. I might as well just get wasted because I had nothing else to do.
Yeah. Yeah. That's such a sad place to be. But once you start to recognize it and not want it anymore, that's when you can really start to begin to change it.
Yeah. And that is kind of how you change it, is looking at what you don't want in your life.
Mm-hmm. Well, and recognize how it's serving you. So I see this in people like that are late a lot, and they're late all the time, but they don't understand how it affects people and time. And one of the things one of my clients said one time is what happened was when she was late, her husband, who was always so busy, actually gave her a lot of attention because he couldn't stand to be late. And so even though it was really negative attention, it was serving her. And so she had to recognize, oh my goodness, I'm actually doing this for attention and I'm getting it. So she actually asked him if she ever showed up early, like if she got downstairs and was ready for like church early, that he would actually do a cheer or do something because that would start to shift it because it was serving her. And often our chaos and our sabotage serves us in a way that it gives us what we're needing, but it's a negative thing that we're needing.
Yeah, it is. So when we recognize, and like you said, recognize what it's doing for us, why we're so good at this self-sabotage, what it's serving in our lives, but then focusing on not how bad it is and how, and how I have to stop it, but focusing on where we want to change. What is it we want to be more like? What is it like? We want to be on time more often. Okay, well, it might not happen every single day, but when we are on time, give ourselves credit and then give ourselves that whatever it is that our self-sabotaging is serving, the feeling of attention or whatever it is, giving ourselves that when we're doing the things that we want. And that way we're kind of reinforcing the good behavior we want in our lives.
Right. And we've said this before, the familiar when it's familiar. And so we want to make the unfamiliar, which is feeling good and great and knowing we can figure it out. We want to make that the new familiar. And how do we do that? And one thing that I experienced is when I started to get well and I started to feel better more often, I'd recognize like maybe I'd be on the bus on the way to work and I knew I hadn't forgot anything. I knew I wasn't going to be late to work. There was no reason for me to panic, but all of a sudden I would feel this, I would just start to be like, oh no, no. And I think, what is that? And I'd say that out loud to myself. What is this? And what it was is my body was trying to go back to what it recognized and what it was familiar with. And that was that you're not good enough. You're going to be late. You're going to mess it up. You're going to screw it up. And so I was able to recognize that and go, you know what? Right here, right now, I am fine. And then I would do breathing exercises, where you just breathe in for 4, hold for 4 and let out for 4. And I would do that 4 or 5 times on the bus. And by the time I got to work, I was totally calm, but I would recognize that. And sometimes it was the same time every day or when I got to a certain place every day. But when I was recognizing it and I wasn't driving, I was stuck on a bus. So there wasn't anything I could do except to go, what is this? And do I want it?
Yeah. So right now, I do still have habits that I'm not thrilled with. I still am working on. I think it's a continuous thing. But when we've reinforced ourselves, it's like now it's so much easier to counter these self-sabotaging habits because I'm not. I've proven to myself that I am capable, that I'm able to change things. I'm able to stop doing the bad habits.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes it so when I do recognize the things I want to change and what I want to be doing instead, it's a lot simpler now. Like you said, you recognize it, you say, what is this? And you're like, oh yeah, this is because that's what was familiar. That's what I remembered. That's what I was used to. But that's not what I'm doing now. That's not who I am now. And so this is, you do the reflection, the breathing, and you recognize where you are and give yourself credit for it. Give yourself a pat on the back and say, look, I've gotten past that.
Yeah. And it's kind of like there's this story in recovery that this guy's walking down the road and there's this big pothole and he falls in. And so he's trying to get out. And finally, it took him forever, but he found his way out. So the next day he's walking down the same street and he falls in the hole, but he gets out a little quicker. And then the next day he's like, wait a minute, I know there's a hole there. So he walks around it. And then the next day he takes a different street.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a learning process.
Yeah, sometimes we keep doing the same thing. And it's like insanity is when we keep doing the same thing, expecting different results. And so we begin to recognize it, and then we can change our behavior once we see what it is, and we can just go a different way.
Yeah, that's a learning process. We're learning about ourselves, and we're learning why we do things that we do, and learning how to do things differently.
Mm-hmm.
And what it takes to get to that step of doing things differently. And for me, it's a lot easier now. But back when I was first dealing with my issues, I had no idea why I was self-sabotaging other than I liked doing drugs and alcohol a lot. And it numbed me. It made it so the feelings I was having, didn't affect me as much. And it worked. But it was also just destroying my life. It was keeping me from doing anything I wanted to do. And I couldn't have a career. I couldn't get anywhere. So I think it's the learning about ourselves, learning what it is that we want to change, and then learning how we are able to change and what those steps are. And mostly they're finding the ways of talking to ourselves in a way that we can convince ourselves that we're not that failure that we consider ourselves. And I always felt like basically I was convinced that I would never get anything done because everything I tried to do, I messed up. At least that's what I told myself. Everything I tried to do, I messed up. And even the little things that I did do right, I discount them. I thought, oh, that was not a big deal. So it's when you start looking at the things that you are good at and you don't discount them, you start to add to them. And I think that's where it starts to build, is when you find the things that you're good at, you start to add to them, you start to focus on them instead.
And again, when we sabotage ourselves, it's not just hurting us, it's hurting the people we live with. If you have kids at home, if you're married, or even if you maybe aren't, but you live with other people, whenever we sabotage ourselves, it spills over into other people's lives. It's like when you see people that just have crazy, chaotic lives, it affects everyone around them.
Yeah.
Because they're late, or they're always forgetting everything, or all the chaos that goes with it spills out onto everybody else. And so when we start to recognize that maybe we're living in that way, either chaotic or numbing everything, that when we can take responsibility for it and we can start to actually enjoy our life, we're going to enjoy the people around us, and they're going to enjoy us a little more too.
Yes, and you're limiting yourself by not allowing yourself to be the capable person that you are. You're not allowing yourself to have those capabilities, those things that you can do, you're not allowing yourself to do them by having these self-defeating, these self-sabotaging acts, these habits, because you keep convincing yourself you're never going to be able to do those things. Well, unless you believe you can do them, you won't.
Right. And that's why being either in coaching or counseling or in some sort of support group is so helpful, because you recognize, oh, other people struggle with this too. It's not just me. And, for some people, it's perfectionism. For some people, it's a voice in their head, which is maybe a parent of, you never do anything right. You're never going to measure up. And we continue that voice even after that parent's maybe dead. We keep telling ourselves that. And when we're in a group or with counseling, we can recognize that and go, wait a minute, I don't have to have that voice in my head anymore.
Yeah. And it certainly comes from that self-awareness, paying attention to what we say to ourselves, paying attention to what we think about ourselves, paying attention to how we excuse things, and also paying attention to what happens when we do have these self-defeating things, when we're late all the time, or, what is happening in our lives. Is it a self-fulfilling thing where we're convincing ourselves that we're not capable, that we don't matter by screwing up all the time? Or is it like your friend was getting attention all the time? What is it that we're feeding with this behavior? And once you're starting to learn that, you can unlearn it by learning the other behaviors, the behaviors that we're actually desiring, the behaviors we want in our lives.
And also, when you decide that, it seemed like there was something you said, once you see that there's something you want to change, you can be like, okay, I'm going to try this for a week. And then if I hate it, I'll go check out some more. But the truth is, you probably won't. But if you give yourself a little grace of not like, now I always have to do it, but I'm going to try to go to bed early for a week. I'm going to try to eat less sugar for a week. We can do anything for a short amount of time.
Yeah. And don't drag yourself down if you don't do it every single day that week, but just give yourself the credit for when it happened and pay attention to how it felt when it happened. And that's kind of how I've been doing it now with my lists and paying attention to what it is that I'm trying to get done every week. And if I don't get it all done, at least I look at what I did get done and say, okay, those aren't on my list now. I'll work on the rest of this next week. And when I check those off, I add more to the list, and, you just build on it. You're just building on your success rather than building on pouring down on your failures. And after a while, you don't want to do the things that you were doing so much that were holding you back, because you're enjoying that success. You're enjoying the things that you've been wanting to do, and whatever it was from holding you back from doing them, like, oh, it's too hard, or, oh, it takes too long, or if you just do it a little bit at a time, you realize, no, it's not that hard. I can do a little bit at a time. I can work my way towards it, and I get things done.
Yeah. One of my favorite phrases is baby steps. Like, just take baby steps. Just try a little bit. Just change one little habit.
Yeah. And build on them. Build with them, using those baby steps to continue to work towards your goals, rather than when you don't make a step, drag yourself backwards with, self-defeat and telling yourself, oh, see, I just can't get anything done. No, it's just looking forward rather than looking at the failures so much.
Yeah. And often some of the things that maybe we procrastinate are things that, like, we think we should do. I'm so against shoulds, but often we have this list of shoulds that aren't even really, if we speak them out loud, they may not even be things that we want to do. Or, it's like we've created this, well, I should always have all these things done. I should, there's perfectionism type of shoulds, but often we have all these lists of shoulds, but we've never really looked at them. And a good example is, like, sometimes women will get crafts and they'll have all these crafts in their crafts room. And then they've got in their mind, I should get this done because I paid money for it, whatever. And the biggest freeing thing is to take all those crafts and take them to the thrift store or give them to someone else when you just can't can't do them, but even though you know you're not going to do them, you're saying I should. So you're carrying all this weight of all these shoulds of something that isn't even relevant anymore.
Yeah, it isn't what really matters to you, but you
Yeah.
feel like you should be doing it because you've invested in it
Right.
in the past. And so,
But it's okay to let go.
yeah, exactly. You don't have to do it just because previously you were thinking, oh, I should be doing this. So I gotta get this done.
And another one is with social media. I've noticed this. A lot of people will send me videos they want me to watch. And there's no way I can watch all the videos that everybody sends me. And I try not to. Like, I know I send you guys a lot of podcasts. I try not to do that. I try, if I can, just explain it. But it's hard because then I feel like I should watch it. They took the time to send it. They're trying to give me a message. But on the other hand, I have to look at what time I have available, and I can't beat myself up and sabotage myself because I can't watch all these videos that people send me all day long. So again, it's knowing your limits and knowing your boundaries.
Yeah. And that's why I like doing the checklist thing, because it makes you think about what it is you want to get accomplished. And then when these other distractions come in, the people sending you videos or podcasts or something, or the people on Facebook asking you to watch this, or, if you're focusing on your checklist, if you're focusing on the list of what you really feel is important, you're not going to be so inclined to be distracted. It still happens. I still get distracted all the time. It's easy. We're very, we all have that short attention span generally. And it's like, oh, look, a squirrel,
Well,
but at least you're able to focus better.
Right. And there's something too, just daily habits and daily actions that you do every day, regardless, that kind of helps keep you on track. And sometimes people will try a new habit, eating better, going to bed, and they'll be like, yeah, it didn't work. I did it for a week and I didn't feel like 100% better. Sometimes just giving yourself the grace to just keep doing it a little bit every day, like you don't have to change everything, but maybe drink one extra glass of water a day, or watch one less video a day, or, it's like, it's easy to do it in small amounts.
Yeah.
But to be mindful. And I like the list idea because it's like, what do I want to accomplish today? And some people like to make lists and put ridiculous amount of things on it so they can check it off. And if that's you, then do that, brush my teeth, put my contacts in, check.
Yeah. But at least it's making you pay attention to what you really care and think is important. And it's also making you think about it. And okay, what is it really that I want, that I care about, that matters, and isn't like a should, or isn't like a I feel like this, because no, it's what is it that I really care about, that really, would like to get done this week, or at least focus on somehow.
Right.
And
it's a way of being intentional.
Yeah, and then, exactly.
Yeah. And then when you look at it, then, you can say, well, I did do this or I didn't do that, but I had an actual reason for not doing it, rather than just because I was scrolling or being distracted.
And I think one of the main things with self-sabotage is recognizing the things we're doing, because like you said, we're really good at, hiding those things from ourselves. We're not even aware of them often. So being intentional kind of makes you look at what it is that's keeping you from being intentional. So recognizing how we are sabotaging ourselves, and then kind of going a little bit deeper and recognizing why we're so good at those things, what it is that drives us towards all the habits we have. Back then, it was easy for me to see why I was good at them and why I did them and so forth, because I knew what I was, as I started dealing with my issues, I was like, oh yeah, I did that a lot because that's the way I felt about myself, and I was trying to sabotage my life. But now, after I've dealt with those issues, these other ways of sabotaging come up, and I have to look at them and go, wait, why is it I'm spending so much time, doing this when I'm not really productive? I'm not really gaining anything from it. Is it just because I feel like parking myself on the couch for a couple hours? And if so, couldn't I be doing something better? And
When
but
I worked with the homeless ladies, we'd get exuberant volunteers that would just like, I'm going to get her into housing, and they would get a woman into housing, and she really wasn't ready.
mm,
And she would run away, and the volunteers would get so mad. But it's like, until you're ready for that step, or they would get into a house, but they couldn't bring themselves to sleep on the bed because they didn't feel worthy, because they had slept outside for so long. And so it's like that to us, we can recognize self-sabotage. Gosh, we got you into housing and then you ran away and gave it
yeah,
all up. What the heck? But it's that deserving. And so if we worked with the ladies in a way that we went slow and helped them to recognize and learn to value themselves, then by the time they got into housing, they would feel at least a worthiness of, I do deserve a house. I do deserve a bed to sleep in.
yeah.
But that's a kind of an extreme example. But, sometimes it takes a while to get used to the idea that you deserve good things.
Yeah, yeah, I know for me, it's what it took. And even now, I see a lot of my self-sabotage with the procrastinating and being distracted as a way of feeling like I'm just not quite there. I'm just not that good. I'm good enough. And that's kind of where it is in my head when I'm doing that. I'm good enough, but I'm not that good. I'm not. I'm good at my job. I get my work done, and that's good enough. So when you're settling, that's kind of how I see self-sabotaging now, is I'm just settling. And I don't want to settle. And that's why I pay attention to this now, because there are a lot of times when I just settle for whatever it is I'm doing right now.
Yeah. But doesn't it feel awesome when you recognize what it is and that that you have control over it?
Yeah. It's fun to surprise myself. And that's how I look at it. Because when I want to just settle and I don't settle and I get things done that I want to do, it's like, wow, look at that. I did that. That's
and
great.
It didn't kill me.
Yeah. It's like, wow. It's fun to surprise myself because I'm still used to settling a lot of times because I've taught myself to settle. We're really good at convincing ourselves that we don't deserve better.
Yeah. So new self-talk, you deserve better.
Yeah, I deserve to not settle.
Yeah.
Don't settle. That's, I think, my new mantra. Don't settle.
Yeah. I am someone who doesn't settle.
So that's it for today.
We are going to have a prayer time if you want to stick with us. If not, we believe in you.
We want to hear from you. We want to hear your stories.
If you like this podcast, please rate and review, because that's how other people can find us. And we really want to spread this message.
Father, I thank you for all your blessings, especially that you don't settle with us, or that you want us to have better. You want us to have hope. You want us to have healing. You want us to thrive and have a purpose in our lives. And you want to show us that purpose, Lord. I just pray that for anyone listening, they would feel the desire to find those things in their lives that give them purpose, and actually convince themselves that they do have purpose and that there is a better life for them out there, and that you want to fill them with your spirit of teaching them what it is that they can do better, and that they deserve to have in their lives, Lord. And I just pray for anyone who's struggling with self-sabotage, that they wouldn't beat themselves up about it, Lord, but that they would find a way to forgive themselves, and also find a way to learn to change the way they think about themselves and talk about themselves and what they believe about themselves, that they do deserve to thrive. They do deserve to have a better life. And Lord, I just pray you would be with them through this process and help them to thrive. In your name I pray.
Oh, Father, I just thank you that our mind can change our brain, and our words and our thoughts can change our outcome. And I'm so grateful for that, Lord. that we can sit in sadness, or we can choose to change our thoughts, and we can choose to look at things in a different way and have a different outcome. And thank you that that is a possibility, that we don't have to stay the way we are. And I thank you for the freedom of recovery, and that it is a possibility. I thank you that there are well-trained counselors and coaches that can help us walk through this. And Father, I pray that when we recognize that we're self-sabotaging, that you will help us to know what to do, or bring some of that along that can walk beside us in it and help us recognize it. And I just thank you that there's a saying, when we're ready, the teacher shows up, and that we would be ready, that we'd be ready for the next step to learn and to grow and to live this life to the fullest. In your Son's holy name, amen.
Amen.